Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Summer Seminar number 2. I'm so glad that you're here with us this evening. You can tell we're sitting a little different. If you were here for Summer Seminar number 1, we were sitting in rows. Tonight, we're in around tables because we want to give you a chance to talk with each other a little bit as well. So we're going to have a couple moments throughout the night where you're going to get to talk. So even if I do a terrible job, just look around, okay, and you got encouragement from those guys. Another comfort for you tonight, no matter what you learn or don't learn, are the cookies on your table, which you may eat at any time, okay? These are crumble cookies that we wanted to bless you with. And the third and final blessing, maybe final, is there are books right outside this room it's called Parenting by Paul David Tripp, and I think it might be the most excellent parenting book that exists right now that's in print. So a free copy is waiting for you out there, one per family. You can grab it on your way out. We want to make sure you get it so that you can have a resource on the way out of this as well. My name is Josh. I am the director of family ministries here at Storyline. I am married to Amy, who is in here somewhere. Amy, where are you at? Okay, back here. So you can look at her to see if I'm telling the truth whenever I start talking about my family, and she'll go thumbs up or thumbs down. We have 4 kids. Our oldest is 10, and he is just, I'll talk to you about them later. We have 10, 8, 6, and 4, and our second is a girl. So we have a full house. And some of you guys might know, when you get up to 4 kids, that's the level at which you start getting asked the questions. That's do you know what causes that? I've gotten that one. How do you do it? You know, you got, I can't believe you brought them all here. You know, these types of comments that really are confidence boosters for you. No, they really make you question, did we know what we were doing when we did this? Did we know? But there's a lot of parenting actually that makes you ask, did we know what we're doing? I feel very inadequate right now as a parent. One of those is when you take all 4 out. Another is when you have times where you're with other people's kids, okay? And you're trying to figure out, like, are my kids normal or are everyone else's kids weird? One of those two has to be true, and I'm not sure. Last week, I spent an entire week with middle schoolers and high schoolers trying to discern this exact question. I see Pablo over here. He was hanging out with the middle schoolers. I was with the high school group. And one of the things that helps me have confidence, even when I feel inadequate, is there's a couple things that I feel like I'm kind of good at. You know, not real good at, but kind of good at. One of them is hanging out with middle schoolers, high schoolers, and elementary schoolers. I feel like even at age 34, I can still, hang with them. You know, they still think I'm cool. I can still give high fives. We can be friends. And last week kind of helped disprove some of that. You know, for the first time in my life, I really felt like, you're getting old. One of those was the guy up on stage, leading the whole camp for us. He dressed like Screech from Saved by the Bell every day. Like the jeans that are pulled all the way up, the oversized shirt tucked in. You guys know the look I'm talking about, like the pants legs pulled up. And I genuinely turned to the student sitting beside me, and I'm like, is he cool or is he trying to be funny? I can't tell. I don't know. Are we supposed to laugh or are we supposed to think he's cool? That was number 1. Number 2 was I kind of, you work the room at mealtime at camp as a leader. You're trying to say hey to the boys, the girls. So I'm over at the middle school girl table, chatting it up. What was your most fun part of the day? Did you go to bed at a reasonable time? No. How late did you stay up? All that kind of stuff. So I'm leaving the middle school girls table thinking, I've done a pretty good job at hanging out with these girls, and I hear behind me, oh, Mr. Josh is so cool. And there's the confidence booster. I still got it, guys. Middle school girls even think I'm cool. And then a little, with no hesitation, right behind it, I hear, I know, right? He's such a dad. I'm a cool dad. I don't know where that puts me on the level of playing field, but that was a confidence booster that really took a hit. Another thing that is a confidence booster for me is athletics. Whatever game we play, I believe that I can beat you. That is how I work in my mind. I might not say it out loud, but I believe it. Except golf, okay? And in golf, I know I cannot beat you. In fact, I am just trying to hit it to where you don't laugh at me while we're walking down to where our balls are going to end up. So like every young or even old person right now, I went to YouTube to try and help my golf game. And I found this video that I wanted to share with you guys.
I've been asked many times, JC, what are your swing thoughts as you're swinging? What are the secrets? What are the secrets of golf that pros know? Well, I heard this one time, and I remembered it, and it's really, if you'd write this down, it really helped. What I try to do, I try to flat load my feet so I can snap load my power package. That way I can amplify both lag and drag pressure through impact fix. As long as my number 2 power accumulator doesn't break down, I can reach maximum centripetal force with minimum pivotal resistance. You see, the pivot is utilization of multiple centers to produce a circular motion for generating centrifugal force on an adjusted plane, plus the maintenance and balance necessary to promote the 2-line delivery path. See, golf is geometrically oriented linear force. It involves a physical and muscular thrust and the geometry of the circle. You can divide the golf swing into 24 basic components, each having between 12 and 15 variations. Now, when you think of all this and you get it all set, hopefully you'll hit shots like this.
All right, so that is exactly what I don't want to do tonight with parenting, okay? I don't want to take this thing that should be pretty simple, there's a ball sitting on the ground and you need to hit it, and make it seem super complicated. I want to keep it simple for us. So I'm going to begin the night with the most simple part of the night. And this helps me remember, if you have a question as we're going, whether you think it's simple or complicated, that's okay. This is where you can go to ask the question, and it will filter in, and we'll make sure that we get to it, because at the end of the night, we'll have a time for question and answer, okay? So if I'm correct, I believe you just go to sli.do, right? Hand up if that's true. And then you put in the code, and that's where you can ask the question. All right, so for simplicity's sake, you have a piece of paper and a pen on your table. Feel free to grab that. If you have a notebook, then it's probably better if you write it in your own notebook, but I do have a piece of paper for you. This is something that you don't even have to write down. It is so simple. Here we go. Kicking off the night with this. Home is the first mission field. Right? You see that? You got it written right there at the top for you. It's actually the title. Some of you guys are thinking, is this really what we paid for? This is the content that we're going to get. No, it will get a little cooler, I think, but I do think we need to start simply. Some of you guys are thinking, did she really pay for this, or was this free? No, this does not cost you anything. While we're talking about some things that you might already know, for any of you guys who are, like me, blessed enough to have someone under the age of 5 in your home, then you know that your home is a war zone of dirty socks and of crumbs from yesterday's snack, and young humans that think they know more than they actually do, or just know more than you. Sometimes that's hard to parse out which one is which. But I want to invite you to an idea that the home is something much more sacred than that, much more sacred than a war zone. God has given parents the incredible task of shaping a heart from its first beat until the time that it's making its own life decisions as an adult. We have the role of crafting an arrow that's going to take the gospel light into the darkness of the enemy. And here's some breaking news for those of you with kids under 6 months, or those of you who are future parents. They come racing out, fully equipped with their brand new sin nature, okay? This is how we get them. And what started as a sacred task then can quickly devolve into, who is the worst sinner here? Me or you, child? I don't know. So what are we supposed to do about it? That's what I hope we can answer tonight. How in the world are sinners supposed to parent sinners in a godly way? Well, I'm glad you asked. It means you're at the right seminar. So let's start by talking about what's true at the end. The board is what we're going to get to in 1 second. This is where I'm going to invite you into the conversation, okay? You can talk with your spouse, you can talk with somebody at your table, or you can talk with the whole table, whatever you want to try to invite in, or just put your head down and no one will bother you, okay? Also an option. Here's the question that I want us to start with tonight. Thinking about the end in mind, there's a phrase that I like to use. It says that your path leads to your destination. So the steps you take today are important in getting to where you will end up, all right? Many parents, they walk a road without any intentionality and end up at a destination that they never intended, all right? And it's because each step was not intentional on the way there. So tonight we want to begin with the end in mind, and this is the question. For 3 minutes, I'm going to give you a chance to write down the top 5 things you want to be true of your kids when they are grown, all right? Let's see, I'm going to try and put this timer up for you, and your 3 minutes will begin now. The top 5 things you hope are true of your kids when they're grown. If you guys are coming in, there are 3 tables here with no one at them, so that means you can have 10 cookies each. Just all right, we got a minute left. Remember, we're writing down the top 5 things we want to be true of our kids when they're grown. 1 more minute left. All right, guys. I want to acknowledge in the room who we have before we get. I'm going to let you guys throw up a couple answers. If you have a child who is over, or if let's say if all of your children are over the age of 18, raise your hand. We got any? All right, great. That is perfect. Anybody have our grandkids? Anybody? Good. Oh, love that. Love that. Okay, I'm so glad you guys are in here. We're going to talk about some things of grandparenting. What if your kids are between 18 and 10? We got anybody in the 10 to 18 range? Okay, good. So you guys are falling in our Storyline student ministry. Okay, and if your kids are 10 years or younger, okay, a lot that are in Storyline kids. And anybody who doesn't have kids yet, future parents. All right, yep. Everyone else in the room respects you because you're working at this thing. They're thinking, I wish I had done that. I wish I had thought about this. Okay, raise your hand if you got something you want to share from your top 5. Or you can shout it out. You don't have to raise your hand. I don't have to call on you. What's something from your top 5? There we go. Nice work. I knew Jesus was going to be the first answer that God said. You guys are good church people. Yeah. Okay, relationships. Yeah, healthy relationships. That's a big deal. A few more. Yeah. Nobody wants entitled kids running around, right? We want to have grateful children. Yep. To understand our love. Yeah, that's a big one. Identity in Christ. If you guys, I'm repeating them in case you don't hear them. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, one more. Yeah, committed our family and our church. I love those. So none of you guys said to be 6 feet tall. It's interesting. No, I'm just kidding. We all may had pretty good church type answers, right? We're thinking about important, deep things. Most of those are things you can't see, right? We're not saying skills that were developed or features that we're working on, but these are the unseen, the important things. I'm so glad that's what you guys said. So I want to compare the beginning and the end with you real quick, okay? So we've written down some things about what we hope the end will look like. I want to start out with what the beginning looks like, okay? When your child is born, let me make sure I got my marker here. When your child is born, they are fully dependent on you, okay? Do you see my fancy graph here? If you guys need me to move this table, you need to. Okay, so we have 0 years old, 11, it's like halftime kind of, adolescence, and then 18 plus, okay? You guys got my fancy graph? And then independence, dependence, okay? I know it's hard to read sometimes. When they're born, they are fully dependent on you, and when they are born, they are fully independent of a relationship with God, okay? That's the sin nature, right? So life, and God sent them to us like this because he hates us. No, I'm just kidding. He sent them to us, and he's given us a mission. He has said, you have a job, and that is to take them from being fully dependent on you, and over the course of their lives under your roof, they are supposed to grow to be independent of you, okay? So this will be relationship with family. Okay, you guys know, leave and cleave. This is what we're supposed to do as we grow up, to become independent of our parents. Here, we have they're completely independent of God, but what do you think this line is going to do? They are supposed to grow in their dependence on God, okay? So this is the same thing, relationship with God. So do you guys see that where they begin when they come to us, when God sends them to us, and where they end are very different places. And this is where we see the true reality of parenting. God has made us responsible for raising and training an eternal soul that's far from Jesus. Now, can you see what your home is? Can you see it's a mission field? Can you see your home is your first mission field? And if home is our first mission field, then what does that make a parent? Doesn't make them a babysitter. It doesn't make them an owner. It doesn't make them a portfolio manager. It makes us a missionary, right? If our home is a mission field and God has sent us these children, he has asked us to be a missionary. I want to hear from you one more time, and then I'll do some talking for a little while. But whether it's in your notebook, on your piece of paper, whatever it is, I want you to take 3 more minutes and write down what could be different about your home if you saw yourself as a missionary. Maybe you're tracking and you're like, this is learned nothing new. I already know all of this stuff. I feel like I'm living as a missionary. Then I'd love for you to write down what it is you do because you are a missionary, okay? But if this is like, oh, I've never heard somebody say this before, then I want to hear what could be different about your home if you saw yourself as a missionary. You guys have 3 minutes, and then we actually won't announce too much of this out loud. I'll let you keep it with you, okay? So 3 minutes. What would be different if you saw yourself as a missionary to your family? right, we got a minute left for the grandparents in the room. Think about what it could be like if you treated your grandkids as if you were a missionary to them as well. Just want to make sure I throw that out there. See, what I've noticed is you guys don't actually talk till the clock goes out, and then you start talking. So you can start talking before that. It's okay. Now that we've established that every Christian parent is a missionary, we need to know what a missionary life looks like in parenting. And that's what the rest of our night is going to be spent learning about, is what does a missionary life look like? Because I know some of you guys are already trying to plan your altar calls every Tuesday and Thursday night at home. And some of y'all are thinking that you've got those backyard Bible club invitations ready to hand out tomorrow at breakfast. But I want you to know that living a life on mission as a parent looks a lot more natural than that. It's a lot more about the rhythms of life that we already have and redeeming them for God's purposes. One of the largest missionary agencies in the world has thousands of missionaries all over the world. The Crandalls, who we have sent, Thomas West in London, different people have been supported by this agency, the International Mission Board. They have put together 6 components of what they call the core missionary task. So if you were to go and take the gospel to a foreign land, they would train you in these 6 core components. And guys, as I was looking over them a few years ago when I discovered them, I thought, this is remarkably similar to the calling of a parent. The overlap is incredible of how we think about discipling our kids as someone overseas thinks about taking the gospel to a people that has never heard it. So we're going to look at these 6 components, kind of fly over, 30,000-foot view. And as I want to show you all of them at one time, you don't have to write them down, but if you want to, number 4, which is on the back of your paper, that one is a blank space. So I'm not going to put anything in number 4 for you. So if you want to write down, we'll go through them one at a time, and that's where I would write them down at. So here we are. These are the 6 components of the core missionary task. We have entry, evangelism, discipleship, church relationships, leadership development, and then exit and partnership. Immediately right off the bat, I hope you see that when I say you are a missionary to your home, when I say home is the first mission field, I mean so much more than just evangelism, just sharing the gospel. Of course, we want to share the gospel. Of course, we want our kids to come to know Christ, but it's much more holistic than that. In a Christian home, we don't just create converts, we make disciples. We are not pushing until our kids are dunked in the water and then we've crossed the finish line of Christian parenting. It's much more holistic than that. It is growing them more into the image of Christ. It's seeing them come to faith, and then it's also seeing them become a disciple, seeing them have relationships in the church, seeing them be developed, and then ultimately seeing them sent. So let's start with the first one, entry. Let's jump in. Entry, I'm going to give you a little tagline for each one of these 6 components. So the tagline that I'll give you for entry is we study our kids, okay? We study our kids. When you're a missionary going overseas, there are things that you just need to learn, right? You need to learn, throw out a couple of them. What are things you need to learn when you land in a foreign country? When you step off the plane? Language. Something else. Where the bathroom is. All right. I didn't have that one on my bingo card, but I'll take it. The culture, the customs. Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch. And this is why entry is so important to us as parents. Because when that missionary who has been sent out from their church to take the gospel lands in that country, they never wonder, now wait, what was it that I'm doing here again? Wait, why am I here? No, they're focused. They understand the mission. And all too quickly, we can forget the mission. We can forget what we're doing. We can forget why God gave us these entitled little tax write-offs. And what does God want to accomplish through us in their lives? And even when we do think about it, I got to be honest, a lot of times we have a completely backwards view of what it is we're supposed to be doing. Chap Bettis wrote a book called The Disciple Making Parent. Now, the book you're getting for free here tonight is the best one, but I'm going to mention a few others if you need like a 1B, 1C, 1D, okay? This is one of them. This is what Chap Bettis says in The Disciple Making Parent. Most parents assume that by bringing their kids to church, discipleship will happen automatically. Guys, if there is one thing that I could transmit by osmosis to every single person in our church family, I would put my forehead to yours, and I would say that your home is not my first mission field. Now, as the next-gen family guy, I know that can sound a little harsh. I don't mean it harsh. I mean it in love. But there is a role that you play in the life of your kids and your students that I cannot play. Best case, you have your kids here with us at church. Every time we open the doors, I and those of us that are serving and loving this church family will get 75 hours a year with your kids or with your students. Worst case, you will get 1,500 waking hours with your kid or with your student in a year. So even just understanding the amount of time that one spends with the other, you see that I cannot accomplish discipleship for all of us as a church family. This has to be something that we own. This has to be a cultural shift that we make that, and it's understandable. We might take our kid to a tutor for pre-calc because we can't help. We might take our kid to work on their swing because they're just uppercutting the mess out of that thing, you know? We might take them because I don't know anything about hockey, but you guys like hockey here, so I tried to say something, it didn't come out. But whatever you do in hockey to go, like we take our kids places, right? Our spirituality doesn't work like that. If I can just be honest with you, you can't farm out the discipleship of your kids. This is a big part of entry, understanding what it is you're walking into as a parent. I want to give you a definition. This is something that I would definitely write down. This is a definition. Sometimes we have to define simple things, and it helps us understand their meaning. I want to give you a definition of a child, okay? No matter what age. This is the definition of a child. An eternal soul sent to you by God to steward for his glory and your good. Here we go. I got it up on the screen for you, too, if you need to see that. What I want to do in our entry component is I want to introduce you to your kids, and then I want to introduce you to yourself. I want to do a little research. To introduce you to your kids, your kid or your student has an eternal soul. This gives weight to everything that we do. You're doing what you're doing not just for 80 years, but for 80 million years. Isn't that incredible? God has entrusted us with lives that will live forever. The question is where, right? I don't mean to be a downer, but this is a real question in where our kids will spend their forever, right? Will it be with God or separated from God? They are an eternal soul sent to you by God. So this next part of the definition, I want you to see that God does not make mistakes. This is not an accident that you have the child with you that you have. He or she has been sent to you by God. And he or she has been sent to you so that you can steward their life. Steward this responsibility, not be an owner. This is not your possession. This is not your trophy to show off to the world of how great you are or how great you think they are. But it's a life that God has given you to steward. Why? For his glory. This is our chief end of glorifying him and for your good. If anyone in here has a kid that can speak, then you know that our kids are for our sanctification, okay? Am I right? That they shine a floodlight on the idols of our heart. There's no other way around it. It's almost a battle of, I don't want you to see how sinful I am, and yet I can't help it. It just comes out, right? This is who our kids are. But then we also need to know who we are. We are also sent to our kids. Our kids are sent to us, but we also have been sent. You guys know when we commission a church planter up on stage, what do? We put our hands out and when we say, you are sent with the gospel to wherever it is you're taking them. You also are sent from the church as missionaries to your home. You are not only a sinner, you are a transformed sinner. You have experienced the grace of God. Your heart is no longer one of stone, but it's one of flesh. You are not loved because of what you do. You are loved because of what he has done for you. This is you. I'm introducing you to yourself. You are a sinner, but you are redeemed. You're loved. You're adopted. You are saved. You're born again. You're also something else. Check this out. You are the most influential person in your child's life. Here's number one. Let me see if I can do this right. Look at this. Luke is the man back there. Luke, thank you. The most influential person. This is from a Barna survey, but honestly, it doesn't matter what survey. If you just Google it, every survey from 1,000 years past to 1,000 years future, it's going to say that parents are the most influential person. This study actually was a survey given to teenagers. So it directly asked teenagers, who's the most influential person in your life? And they were self-reporting. Number one is parents. I want you to sit with that a little bit. You are the most influential person in your child's life. All right. You can whisper to a partner, what do you think number two is? Who do you think number two? We're going to go 5 deep here. Who's the second most influential? As reported by teenagers. It's important. As reported by teenagers. All right. You ready? No betting. No betting. We don't exchange money in here, okay? Number 2. As reported by teenagers. Grandparents, number 2. Isn't that incredible? Grandparents, you guys are so important, those of you that are sitting in the room. I cannot underestimate how important you are to the spiritual lives of your grandkids. They look up to you. We're going to talk some about what community looks like, but you are a huge part of the community of your grandkids. And they love the heck out of you, so that helps too. Number 3, you guys take your quick little guess. I'm not going to give you long on this one. What do you think number 3 is for a teenager? Teachers and coaches. I know some of you guys are like, this is not my teenager because all they do is listen to their friends. You know, this survey was done before YouTube, so you could bump YouTube up a little bit on there. I'm just kidding, kind of. All right, number 4 is friends, and then number 5 in this self-reported survey was the church. We're going to begin to wrap up entry and move into our next one, and I don't want to harp on this multiple times tonight, but I do need to say it. Fathers in the room, men, your influence, your spiritual influence is an outsized one in your child's life. A study that was done in the 90s showed that if a mother attended church regularly, but the father did not, 30% of the time, those kids will still engage with church as adults. Whether that's regular or occasional, they still engage with the church 30% of the time if their mom attends regularly but their father does not. If the father attends church regularly, but the mother does not, 70% of the time, those kids will still engage with church as adults. Now, there's a lot of other stats in that survey. I pulled those 2 out just to illustrate that the father, you have an outsized influence. Hear me say, a mother's role is irreplaceable, just as irreplaceable as the father. But for the men in the room, I want to challenge you to steward this influence well. I hope that our church family is full of men who take seriously their role as a disciple maker in the home. I don't know that there could be a better thing for the kingdom of God at Storyline Church than if our fathers took seriously their role to make disciples in the home. I hope tonight is a part of that. I also know we need each other to do it. So if you are feeling like I'm at a place that I don't even know what to do, I can't do it, then reach out to another guy. We need to be a part of holding each other accountable to this type of influence and leadership and love for our families. Reach out to me. I would love to be a part of that conversation. So wrapping up entry, we've seen our kids and we've seen ourselves. For ourselves, missionaries, sinners saved by grace, the most influential people in our child's lifetime. So let's move on to our second component, all right? Our second component of this core missionary task is evangelism. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you, or maybe to explain to you, that this graph right here, okay, this is not a straight linear line as it appears. Y'all know this? Because nothing in parenting is straight and linear. It's all a little muddied and confusing. But it is generally an arc of parenting, okay? So I do believe it's helpful for us in thinking, where are we and where are we going? Generally, we move in this direction from entry all the way to exit. But know that they're going to happen at similar times. There might even be things that you're like, I need to do that out of order. And that's great. We're just thinking about the arc or the trajectory of this in our parenting. All right, second, evangelism. The little phrase I want to give you for this one is we share the gospel with our kids. All right, it's pretty simple. We share the gospel with our kids. Matthew 28, 18 and 19 might be one of my favorite parenting passages in the Bible. All right? All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Jesus said, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. Are we part of the nations? Is your home part of the nations? Yes. Make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you, and surely I will be with you always to the end of the age. This is the Great Commission, and we apply it easily to the nations. I want you to apply it to your living room, okay? I want you to think with me. What does it look like for us to make disciples in our home? This idea of evangelism, of growing people that know the gospel, love the gospel. So I've got a couple things. How can we share the gospel in our home? How can we share the gospel with our kids? Well, the first thing is, do your kids know the gospel? All right, we had about 350 elementary schoolers here 2 weeks ago, and they memorized an entire verse in 4 days, okay? In 4 days, and it was not an easy verse. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, do good works. Like, it had a few words in it, okay? And in just 4 days, we memorized a verse. So I want to encourage everyone in here. Even preschoolers were starting to get some of it. They can learn things, all right? Do not dumb your faith down for your kids or for your students. I prefer the word simplify, okay? We do want to simplify things, but we don't want to dumb anything down. So do your kids know the gospel? If you're sitting in your chair thinking, I don't know if they know the gospel. If I ask my kid, what is the gospel? I think they should know it, but I don't know. And I'm not exactly sure how to explain it to them. Then I want to help you a little bit here, okay? I also think that is that should be a flashing light for you. If you're thinking in your head right now, I'm not sure what the gospel is, let that be a warning light that you might need to have some conversations with others around you about what the gospel is, because that's very important for your own soul, much less for your kid's soul, okay? Here's an easy way to explain it, though. If you're thinking, how can I simplify this message for maybe we've got a lot of Storyline kids and even our students. I want you to think, Jesus traded places with me. Okay? If you're thinking, what is just an easy, simple way I can explain this? Jesus traded places with me. What does that mean? Well, we have two places, my place and Jesus' place. In my place, what is it that I deserve? We have Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death. Yeah, we deserve to be separated from God forever. And that's because I have sinned, because you have sinned. Because the Bible says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So in my place, I'm separated from God because of my sin. Sin is anything that we think, say, or do that disobeys God. Then there's another place. There's Jesus' place. Now in Jesus' place, is there sin? No, there's no sin. Jesus lived a perfect life. He always obeyed the Father. And he does not get a punishment for always obeying. In fact, he gets a reward for his perfection. He gets a relationship with God. Our sin separated us from a relationship with God. Jesus' perfection established a relationship. It kept the relationship. He loved and obeyed the Father. Now, this was the statement, right? I've just explained the two places so far. We're still in a pretty simple, how do I tell the kids the gospel? Jesus traded places with me. So do you understand what this means? This means that Jesus stood in the place where he took the punishment I deserved. I deserved to be separated from God. When Jesus died on the cross, he took that punishment for me. So now I don't have to. I am not deserving of a punishment if I believe in Jesus. If I confess with my mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in my heart that God raised him from the dead, then I'll be saved from this punishment because Jesus took it in my place. He traded places. But the story's not over, is it? Jesus traded places with me. He didn't just take my place. He gave me his, right? And what does that mean? I can be in relationship with God, okay? I am going to now walk with him, being indwelt by the Spirit, okay? God lives inside of me with his Spirit, and now I'm going to live with him forever in heaven. So even in that simple statement, Jesus traded places with me. All of us, we can share and explain the gospel to our kids. There's a ton of ways. You guys have seen the bridge diagram, the 3 circles. You can use whatever you want. I'm just trying to give you a tool in your tool belt for how you can talk about the gospel with your kids. So that's my first question. How do we share the gospel with our kids? Oh, we tell them. Do your kids know the gospel? Can they tell it back to you? That's a worthy goal as a parent. Number 2, we pray. Not only do we tell them the gospel, but we pray. Because it doesn't matter how many times I tell them, there's nothing I can do that will even grow one more hair out of their head. There's nothing I can do to make them 1 inch taller, much less determine their eternity, much less give them a new heart that loves God, that's soft to his commands, that has received his love and now wants to live in response to that by obeying him. I can't touch that. You can't touch that. We have to be asking God for it. That desperation, if you don't have it, you need to ask God for the desperation first and then go to God and ask him for your kids' salvation. We want to enter and understand ourselves and our kids. We also want to share the gospel with our kids. I've got a couple other things here in this one for you. I know some of you guys, this will be worth the price of admission tonight. I want to talk about discipline for a second, okay? I want to talk about discipline. You're like, well, this is the evangelism part. Why are we talking about discipline? Because in my experience with kids so far, 10 and under, discipline has been maybe our best opportunity to share the gospel with our kids. We talk about it other times. I'm going to bring it up. But in a time where you know you have done something wrong, what better news than that God loves you even though, right? What better chance for us to explain God's love than when there's a chance that they need discipline, where they've done something wrong. So in discipline, here's what I need you to know. I need you to aim for the heart. If we're going to live with home as the first mission field, if we're going to live as a missionary to our kids, then when we are working through discipline, we are working through disobedience, we need to aim for the heart. The opposite of aiming for the heart is only aiming for the behavior, okay? It's only saying, I need to fix what you're doing. And what I want to convey to you tonight is that there is something so much more important than fixing what they're doing. When you're sitting in the line at Target and the kid is just flopping all over the ground and you want more than anything else for there to open a portal straight from the checkout line at Target to your home where that you don't have to take any more steps or have anyone else hear the siren that is your 3-year-old, okay? It's easy for us to think, if I could just fix the behavior, just stop doing it. Stop making me look like a bad parent. I just want you to do what I'm telling you to do. And even then, guys, and that's an extreme example, obviously, but I want us to be thinking about the heart of our children. We can't make the mistake of asking the law to do in our child's life what it could not do in our life. The law is not given to transform. It's not given to change. It's given as a mirror so that we can see how sinful we are and run to our Savior. We want to use it in that same way in the life of our kids. You might not have thought about the implications, but think about if your kid hears you tell them, do this, don't do that, 50 times a day, and never hears you talk about their heart, what it is we're communicating. That's what I mean when I say don't just aim for behavior, aim for the heart. Now, we have to have the law, right? We have to have obedience. I don't want to mix any metaphors. We should expect obedience from our kids and from our students, from our teens and from our toddlers, but never only law and obedience. Because law is only as good as the grace that it points us to. We want to make the gospel come alive in our discipline. So listen, here's a couple steps that I want to take you through in a discipline type conversation, all right? Let's say our 14-year-old has visited an inappropriate website and our covenant eyes pinged us and let us know that they had been to something they shouldn't have been, and we come to them and we're talking to them about the transgression, okay? I'm going to walk you through all 5 steps first, and then we'll walk a little slower. We want them to admit the sin. It does us no good to punish someone for something that they don't understand what they did wrong. All right? And that, honestly, that's when you have a tiny one, that knee-jerk reaction, that's probably the place we go wrong quickest. They knock the glass of milk over on the counter. What are you doing? Why would you do that? And they're like, they don't know what they did wrong. What was the wrong thing that they knocked over the milk? Was the wrong thing that it spilled on your papers? Was the wrong thing that they did an accident? They didn't mean to. We need them to admit their sin, and that means we need to understand what the sin is. Our discipline does not come from anger. Our discipline comes from love. And our kids and students understanding what it is they did wrong is this first step of love. It's actually, you'll start to see the trend. This is actually kind of how we interact with God too, okay? We have to admit our sin. Okay, so anyways, admit the sin. Second, we want them to see the heart issue, okay? Let's take this 14-year-old example. Hey, Josh, I see that you clicked on this link. Why did you go to this site that you knew you weren't supposed to go to? Or no, sorry, first, did you go to the site? No, I didn't do that. Well, I have it right here. I saw that you did. And I know that you were using the iPad at the time that this happened. Yeah, you know, I guess I did accidentally click on it. No, I don't think you could get there by accident. You see, I'm trying to steer it towards them admitting the sin. I'm not just letting it go. No, I think you probably did that on purpose. We don't just get to those type of sites by accident. Yeah, I did. I clicked on it. Well, why? Why do you think you went to that site? I don't know. Because they're never going to answer. It's a 14-year-old. You're never going to get a straight answer the first time you ask a question. I don't know. Well, let's think about it. Did you enjoy looking at what you saw on the website? Did you think that would make you happy? You knew that was not a good one to go to because we've talked about what are good pictures and bad pictures. And so you knew you weren't supposed to, but you still chose that you were going to click on this instead of obeying what you knew we had told you to do. Yeah, I guess I kind of, I liked it a little bit. So we've gotten to the heart issue. See the second one? He's admitted the sin. I did it. Second is I did it because I wanted to. I'm going to say to him, you have a choice. You can do what you want to do and what you think makes you happy, or you can do what you know God wants you to do. Obey me as your parent. And in this instance, you chose what you wanted to do. Okay? Number 3, we want them to remember God's plan. You chose what you wanted to do instead of what God wanted you to do. And I need you to know that's not the way to happiness in life. God tells us in his word there's a path that leads to life, a path that leads to death. Or Adam and Eve, they did what they wanted to do. They ate the fruit instead of what God wanted them to do. Look what it got them. Kicked out of Eden. Remembering God's plan takes them to a place where you have given them 2 options. I obey God, and I see that's what's good for me. Or I do what I want to do, and that takes me to a place that's not good for me. Okay? This is God's plan for all of us. Next, ask for forgiveness. So we want to admit the sin. We want them to see the heart issue, this I made a choice for my own happiness. We want them to remember God's plan. For a little one, oftentimes for Amy and I, this turns into us saying, who's the one in charge? Are you the one in charge, or has God made mommy and daddy the one in charge? And in that moment, we're having a theological conversation, aren't we? Who is the boss? And we tell them, God has made dad the boss. God has not made you the boss. We say this all the time, don't we, Amy? Thumbs up? She's laughing because this comes out of our mouth. And it's not because we are on a power trip. It's because God has sent us to be a steward of this soul for this season that they live under our roof. And I need them to understand that God's way is the best way. And he has set us up to be their boss, for lack of a better word, to be their guidance. We'll get to a little bit more of that in a second. We want them to ask for forgiveness. That means once you get to the place that they have seen God's plan, then our next action step is to apologize. And then the last thing is we want to enforce discipline in love, all right? And you might think, this is crazy. How could you ever accomplish this much stuff just when your kid disobeys? It's not crazy, guys. It's possible. This is not a 30-minute conversation. This goes very quickly. And as you get used to it, you actually get pretty quick at moving through these steps of getting them to admit their sin, see the heart issue, remember God's plan, ask for forgiveness, and then you enforce discipline in love because there's consequences, aren't there? We need there to be discipline. Our kids need us to be disciplining them, just as we need God to discipline us. They need to see that this is not just a free-for-all, I get to do whatever I want, but when I make a decision that goes against God, I have consequences for that. All right, the next one, I've got a couple more, and then we're hitting our 10-minute break here. We want to share the gospel with our kids, we want to infuse them in the life of the church. Okay, so we move past discipline now. We want to infuse them in the life of the church. And we want to do that. I'm just going to toss out a couple examples. Having them involved in the ordinances, so seeing baptisms. We want them in corporate worship with us, seeing you take the Lord's Supper, understanding God's love through tangible ordinances of the church. That is a great way to share the gospel with your kids. Through community, if you're a part of a home group, having your kids and students be a part of that life. Maybe not every week, but when you're hanging out with church family, that your kids get to be a part of that at strategic times. And then mission. We want to involve them with us as we serve those around us. Next, as we share the gospel with our kids, or how we share the gospel with our kids, is we want to look for markers of faith. This happens a lot. You guys have probably heard the Trails class from a lot of our elementary schoolers go through this in understanding the gospel and taking the next step of baptism. We talk about, how do I know my kid is a Christian? As we're sharing the gospel, we want to look for these markers of faith. And repentance is probably the top of the list. When your kid begins to have genuine remorse for their sin without you bringing that, they're bringing it to you, then that is a work of God in their heart. That is a good thing. That is something to celebrate. That's something to praise them for. I'm so glad that you came to me and told me this, and that you, on your own, you repented of that, and I forgive you. Another marker of faith is the fruit of the Spirit. As you see them growing in love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control, we want to appreciate God's work in their life as we see these markers of faith. Next, how do we share the gospel with our kids? We respect the innocence of little ones, okay? Did you know you can pretty much convince your kid of anything? There's a preschooler that asked his dad, I hope this is a safe place, okay? Then we're about to find out, I guess. There's a preschooler that asked his dad, where does poo come from? And dad was like, you should be figuring that one out yourself, buddy. But he kind of tells him, you eat food and then your body processes it. And then he kind of told him what happens after that. The kid's eyes are just like huge, bulging. And he looks at his dad and says, well, what about Tigger? Right? Wrong question. Okay. He didn't understand the question. He also could have convinced his kid of anything. Some of you guys are just getting that one, and I appreciate that, okay? we want to respect the innocence of our little ones. And here's one of the ways that we want to do it is we don't want to rush them. It does no service to your child, to you, or to the Spirit working in your child to push too fast for faith inside of your little one. We want to be consistent, we want to be persistent, and we want to be patient, okay, as we're sharing the gospel. Consistent, persistent, and patient. There might be a time where they cross the line of faith and you don't know it. And I'm okay with that. Because you've been sharing the gospel over and over and over again. They understand God's love for them. And then one day they come to you. Or when they're sitting with you in church and see a baptism and they say, well, I believe Jesus died on the cross for my sins and rose from the dead. I believe he traded places with me. When can I do that? That you start to really understand in this young one what God has done in their heart as you have planted these seeds over and over. Now, as you have a student, that innocence changes, right? I'm talking about with little ones when we have innocence. But as we hit adolescence and teenage years, then they become more like an adult. They're becoming more independent. And I'm not saying we should rush it, but I'm saying I'm trying to, in particular, talk about this young age down here where they are still very dependent on us. That we want to honor that faith, encourage that faith. We don't want to rush it. And then the last thing in evangelism is we want to never give up. I don't know the stories of grandparents that are in here, but I know the stories of a lot of grandparents. A lot of friends that I have who are 60s and 70s and 80s that live in North Carolina right now that are still praying for their children to follow Jesus. That they put in the time. They were a part of sharing the gospel with their kids. I know a guy who wrote his own devotional for the entire Old Testament for his kids to go through. I'm like, bro, that is major. Like, I'm not interested in that level. Okay, we'll just do something when somebody else did. And his kids, he's got 2 out of 3 that are not walking with Jesus right now. And it breaks his heart and his wife's heart. And they have not given up. Because as long as they have breath, God has a chance to do something through their requests in the life of their kids. And now in their grandkids too. So never give up. God has not given up, and we don't want to give up either, that he could do an amazing work in the life of our adult kids as well. All right, let's hit a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back and finish out our 6. Remember that you can grab a book in the back, and also remember if you have a question, you can throw it up in here, and the last few minutes are going to be Q&A for us. Thanks so much. All right, guys, I hate to break up conversations, but I'm going to do it, or else I'm not going to make it on time, and you guys are going to be forced to awkwardly leave the room while I'm still trying to teach you stuff, okay? So this is why I'm jumping back in. All right, we got 2 down. Somebody holler out, what are the 2 components of the core missionary task that we've done so far? Entry and? All right, entry and evangelism. Next, we have discipleship. Discipleship is next. So with discipleship, the little tagline that I want you to write down is that we grow in the gospel with our kids. How do we become disciples of Jesus? We grow in the gospel. Or if you also want to write, because I need to make my senior pastor proud, the good life is in Jesus. If you need to write that on there, don't feel bad. You can write that on there too, because that's also discipleship. We want to grow in the gospel and see that the good life is in Jesus. One of the most, actually, let me start back at the Great Commission first. You guys remember, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go, and in the Christian home, we don't create converts. We make disciples. Go and make disciples of all. Maybe I should say we don't just create converts, because they are converts. Okay, don't just create converts. We make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then what's next? Teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And surely I'm with you always. This is discipleship, teaching them to obey by growing in the gospel. Maybe the most famous family ministry passage, if you will, parenting passage in the Bible is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. I want to read this for you. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. I'm going to be introducing a concept called everyday talk, okay? How do we disciple our kids? How do we grow in the gospel with our kids? It's by our everyday talk. Listen, Israel. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. This is Moses talking to all the people of Israel. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words that I'm giving you today are to be in your heart. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them be a symbol on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Moses starts by telling them this needs to consume you first, adults. Let it be on your heart. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And then, what does he say? Repeat them to your children. He gives them 4 kind of rhythms of a day that I think are very easily transferred into everyday talk for us, which is kind of incredible thousands of years later that this still works, right? And our life is a little different than theirs was when Moses gave it to the wandering Israelites, but still, what do we got? We got to talk about them when you sit in your house. Okay, we still do that. When you walk along the road, right? We added some wheels now, but we still have these travel times that are very available for us in our everyday talk. When you lie down, so we have bedtime, and then when you get up in the morning when we rise. Moses has given them rhythms of life, and he's saying, take advantage of these rhythms. Don't let life pass you by and years later look back and say, where did the time go? We just didn't get to talk to him about God and about his law and about all the things that Moses taught us. He's saying, use every opportunity you have to teach your children the amazing things God has done for you and in you. Bind them as a sign on your hand if you have to. Put it on your forehead, he says in verse 8. Write them on the doorposts of your house. Write them on your walls. Get God's word everywhere. Immerse your family in everyday life with the things of God. How do you make a seed grow? Think about it with me. You got a seed, you put it in the ground. It works a little different here in Colorado than it did in North Carolina, but still the same. It just doesn't grow as much. How do you get it to grow? You put it in the ground and you water it and you let the sunlight shine on it, right? Okay, what about when the seed bursts through the soil a little bit? You can see the little stalk, okay? My wife calls them baby plants at this point, and she loves them. She's a baby plant mom as well. What do you do then when the plant is this big? You water it and sunshine. Okay, but what about if it grows up to be like an adolescent plant? Okay, it's got a mind of its own. It rebels a lot. What do you do to that plant? You water it. Get some sunshine on it. What about a full-grown plant? I mean, we're talking parent plant at this point. Like you chop it off and you give some to somebody else and it's still alive. Like that level of maturity. What do you do to that plant? Oh my goodness. The gospel begins our life with Christ, and the gospel grows our life with Christ. The gospel is not just the beginning point of the race. It is the entirety of the race. It's not just the diving board into the pool. It's the pool itself. It's the fuel for our life in Christ. If the home is the first mission field, then a little secret is that the gospel cannot be avoided in a Christian home. If the home is the first mission field, the gospel should be everywhere. Things of God should be ubiquitous in your home. It should be on the walls. It should be on your forehead. You don't have to write it on your forehead, okay? It should be talked about when we get up, when we lie down, when we walk along the way, when we sit in our house. The things of God should be who we are as God's people. Not just because we're trying to convert them, but why? Because we're trying to disciple them. We're trying to see them grow in the things of God. And to grow, we must go deeper into the gospel. This is how Jesus discipled people. If it's no more comfort than this tonight, you should take this, that what you are doing with your kids is more like Jesus than almost any other part of our life. You're taking them with you wherever you go. In Acts 4:13, it says this about two apostles, Peter and John, that just got done preaching. Some people were trying to arrest them. They took them to Jerusalem for a trial, and this is what they said. When they observed, Acts 4:13, when they observed the boldness of Peter and John, realized that they were uneducated and untrained men, they were amazed and recognized that they had been with Jesus. This is what they recognized about the disciples, that they had been with Jesus. John Younts has a book. You want to go 1C. It's called Everyday Talk. Stole this language from him. This is what he says. In the end, the disciples were like Jesus. Not perfectly, but obviously. I love that statement. The disciples were not like Jesus perfectly, but they were like Jesus obviously. And I think there can be no better explanation than that for what your kids will be like you. They're not going to be perfectly like you, but they're going to be obviously like you, just like you're obviously like your parents. Even when you have to smile and cackle, that's true. It is. Younts goes on to say this: Jesus used all kinds of events and circumstances to teach them. Sparrow, fig tree, kernel of wheat, foxes, wine, camels, gates, highways, pearls, mustard seeds, hair on your head, money, and the weather, to talk to his disciples about God. And that's just what we have recorded, right? There's more that happened that we don't even have recorded. We just know Jesus used everything around him to point his disciples to God. Everyday talk is the phrase that I'm using to describe what that can look like for us as parents, as we disciple our mission field. We want them to see God everywhere they look because he's there, right? We lived in the Piedmont of North Carolina, which means not the mountains or the beach. We were 2 hours from both, which had its benefits, but it is incredible to just drive anywhere and look over, and there you see God, his handiwork. You see incredible mountains that make you feel so small. Is it not so easy? It adds no work to your calendar. You do not have to put this on your Google Calendar to look at those mountains and say to the child or student in your back seat, isn't it incredible that God made those mountains, that God created this? That's everyday talk. You're doing the dishes. You're taking this dirty dish that they just ate, and maybe they didn't eat much of if you have a kid under 5, okay? We've got one or more of those. And you're taking this dirty dish, and you're trying to scrape some of it off before you put it in your dishwasher, and look at your kid and say, you know what's like this dirty dish? That's like our heart. Our sin, it just messes it up. Aren't you so glad that God can wash our heart clean? Just like I'm about to wash this plate clean. There's nothing I can do to wash my heart clean. Only God can do that. That's everyday talk. You have so many opportunities. We've walked through discipline pretty deeply. But there are all kinds of ways that in each day you can point to God. You can point to the gospel. You can say, look with me at the greatness of God. It might as well be plastered on my forehead because I am talking about it so much. I know some of you guys are like, bro, that is the cheesiest thing I have ever heard. I'll take that. If I have to be cheesy for my kid to see the greatness of God in the daily life, let me be cheesy. I'll take it. We want to use our everyday talk to disciple our kids with the things around us. Maybe this is the last one. I had it written down, so I'm going to say it. Getting grades, all right? Those of you with students know that getting your report card back is not always the best day in the home. Elementary is so easy, you know. S, satisfactory, E, excellent. But you start getting up into these grades that actually matter. Kid's tail tucked between his legs, ready to come. Hey, this is maybe you need to have your own little discipline conversation there, okay? You go through your confession and okay? But once you get past that, Isn't it amazing that you and we pulled all F's on our report card to God. He looked at our F's and he said, you know what? I'm giving you a gift, and it is to trade places. I'll take your F's. I'll give you one full of A's. This is just simple everyday life. These are things that come up that you're thinking, how can I bring God into my home? Okay, everyday talk. I feel like I could go on that one forever because I love that. It's fun once you start, and it doesn't add anything. I want to remind you of this. That adds nothing. You're already talking to your kids. I'm just bringing God into it. Number 2 is an intentional time. So you have family worship, everyday talk, that's more as you go. And then we have family worship is another way that we disciple our kids or that we grow our kids in the gospel. And this is intentional time. Now, this is going to transform massively as your kids grow up. When you have preschoolers and elementary schoolers, that family devotions time where you sit around and maybe you read a verse from the Bible and talk about what it means. Maybe you're reading the Jesus Storybook Bible or the Gospel Story Bible, and you're explaining the gospel to your kids. In family worship, I love to think of it as read, pray, sing. That's stolen from something like everything else that I'm saying tonight. Read, pray, sing. Donald Whitney wrote a book called Family Worship, and that's how he described it. Family worship is 3 things. You want to read the Bible together, you want to pray together, and then you want to sing together. That set aside time in your home is significant. That your kids think, my dad, my mom, put time in their calendar to spend with me reading, praying, and singing during the week. There's no diminishing returns on family worship. You want to do it every night? Great. I would encourage you to try once a week if you haven't done it before. Pick a night. So this is going to be our family worship night, our family devotions night. It means the same thing. So we want to be everyday discipling in normal conversation. We also want to have some designated time where we do that. Maybe if you have students that are believers, you ask them to lead one of these times. You assign it at the beginning of the month. Hey, we're doing 4 of these once a week. Dad, you do the first one. Mom, you do the second one. Student, you do the third one. And then you go ahead and have that planned out for the month where they're not just going to read a Jesus Storybook Bible with you the whole time, but you're inviting them in a little bit, which we're going to get to leadership development in a little bit. The third thing under discipleship is modeling the good life. Okay, so everyday talk, family worship, and then modeling the good life. There are 3 examples under this that I want to give you just really briefly, and then we'll move on. One, actually, let me read this first. This is from J.C. Ryle. He's a 19th century pastor. He says this: fathers and mothers, do not forget that children will learn more by the eye than they do by the ear. No school will make such deep marks on character as the home. Imitation is a far stronger principle with children than memory. Take care then what you do before your child. That's convicting, isn't it? That's also one of them old school languages where you're like, oh, that hits a little bit. Yeah, that's 19th century language. Here's 3 things that I think we need to be doing as adults. There's 1,000, but I want to call your attention to 3. One is repentance. A Christian home, guys, it just has to be a forgiveness factory. Parents must ask for forgiveness from their kids when we disobey God, just as we expect them to ask for forgiveness when they disobey us. That's what I mean by modeling repentance. In our house, we got this advice early on. When we get to the point, especially in discipline, where somebody needs to ask for forgiveness, we don't just go up to somebody and say, sorry. We don't go up to somebody and say, I'm sorry. That's not the full weight. It changes what it feels for everybody in the room when somebody walks up and says, and in our case, this is normally like, he punched me, he pulled my hair, he won't give me my toy back. This is the level of life that we're at. I'm sorry, will you forgive me? That one phrase will give weight to your house in a different way. Will you forgive me? It brings in another level of what it means to be forgiven. That someone has to extend that forgiveness to. I ask it. Someone is giving it too. And that's a great picture of what it is with us and God, right? We ask it, but we also need to know God extends it. We have a promise of forgiveness from our Father. If you confess with your mouth, then I will forgive you. Okay? If you confess your sins, then he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness, 1 John 1:9 says. The second part of modeling a good life that I want to bring to your attention is our Bible reading and prayer. We want to let our kids see some of our spiritual life. Now, I know that feels a little different because most of the time we're saying do it in the closet. But for your kids, I still remember going out of my room in the morning and seeing my dad kneeling on the couch and praying and having his time with God. And the concreteness that brought, that my dad thought God was real. My dad believed he was talking to somebody enough to be committed to it. We want to be reading our Bible. We want to be praying in front of our kids. The third thing is a commitment to a church family. Our kids need to see us being committed to the family of God. And then the fourth thing, this isn't a marriage class, but the way that you love and serve one another is a huge testimony to who God is. Servant leadership, husbands. Loving and respectful submission wives join together in equality, together partnering to be on mission for God and to parent these kids. It is a picture of the gospel, Paul tells us. And our kids need to see that in the way that we sacrificially love one another and submit to one another. All right, the next part of our components of the core missionary task here, that was discipleship. We had everyday talk, family worship, and modeling the good life. Next, I want to move into healthy church relationships. All right, in our church relationships, the little tagline is we prioritize gospel-centered relationships in the local church. If you want to write it even shorter, the church is a family. We prioritize gospel-centered relationships. The church is a family. As our kids grow up, there's so many different stages in here, and we all need to hear it. As our kids grow up, more and more, all right, you know the line, they're growing independent of us. They're also growing dependent on God. More and more in this middle range, they need other people in their lives that are saying the same things that mom and dad are saying. Some of y'all know it because you just had kids come back from camp. Like, I've been telling you this for 10 years. Why did it take this 1 week for you to finally get it? But that's how it works. We need a second family wrapping their arms around our family. The pastor that I served with in North Carolina, J.D. Greer, says that God has given us 2 gardens that help us grow our kids. We have the garden of the church and the garden of the home. And we want these 2 gardens to work together. So as our kids grow up, they're hearing a joined message that it is worth giving my life to follow Jesus, that it is true that he rose from the dead, and that his people gather together to proclaim that every week. Proverbs 13:20 says that he who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. If you look at your kids' friends, you will see their future. Now that can be kind of scary. Your friends are your future you. So when you consider that you are a part of establishing that from an early age, then I want you to think, my kids are going to belong somewhere, and they're going to be visitors somewhere. We can't grow up as a family and belong everywhere we go. Does that make sense? There's going to be places that you're like, I go there, but I don't belong. It's not like my community. And there's other places that you go, you're like, these are my people. These are the people that we do life with. And I think we, as parents, it's our job. We have to prioritize helping our kids feel like church is that from an early age, as early as we can, maybe starting today. How can I make this faith community be a place that my kids and students belong? Who do I need to invite into that? How do I feel like I belong? Relationships. This is how everyone feels like they belong, his relationships, but especially with our kids and students. This is how they feel like they belong. And I think Reggie Joiner, he says this. I'm gonna give you this quote. He says, to be able to count on community when you need it, you must cultivate community before you need it. He wrote a great book. It's 1D, Parenting Beyond Your Capacity, if you're keeping lists here. As parents, we have to be willing to say no to good things to be able to say yes to great things. Culturally, we have this thing that we believe our kids have to do everything. This is true Colorado and North Carolina, so I'm pretty sure everywhere in between too. It's just an American thing. We want to give our kids experiences, you know? If you don't believe me, then you think about the last time you or somebody you knew was checking off a bucket list around you. I mean, it's what we do. We do things. Being a Disney, hide that 14er, and I'm not against experiences. Don't hear me say that. I'm not anti-experience. But I do think we need to think long and hard when community takes a back seat to experiences. I think that's a detriment to our kids and to their faith. In a garden that we want them to plant deep roots, the home and the church, when we prioritize experiences over relationships, we keep them from forming those deep roots. Does that make sense? I want our kids to be relationship rich, even if it means being experience poor. Think about that one for a second. I want my kids to be relationship rich, even if that means they're experience poor. And I know in our culture, you know this too. We get told exactly the opposite. Do all the sports, do the dance, do the arts, be involved in everything. Your kids can't miss out. And I think that type of lifestyle very easily misses out on the relationships that give us deep faith roots and strength in challenging times. Choose gospel-centered relationships over experiences. Now, this one's going to hit. Choose gospel-centered relationships and experiences over experiences when planning your calendar. We get real quick, real fast when we start talking about how we're planning our calendar. Is it for experiences or is it for relationships? What about when we're pursuing goals for our kids? Can I tell you, it's more important who your kids know than where your kids have been or what they have accomplished. In Reggie Joiner's book, he shows a study and a stat that there's the most common characteristic of a kid that grows up in the church and then stays in the church after he or she graduates, okay? So you get the person that they're trying to study. Who's the kid that they grew up going to church, they went to college, and then after college, they still said, I'm all in with God's family, with the church? The most common characteristic of that group was that they could name 5 or more adults that followed Jesus other than their parents. It's the most common characteristic. They had been surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, if you will. They've been surrounded by brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas of the church family. Rosaria Butterfield says, our children will never be Olympic-level soccer stars, wear designer clothes, or have social calendars requiring a staff of drivers. Instead, my children build forts, catch frogs, eat popsicles in trees, and bring neighborhood kids to dinner and devotions when the bell rings. What gardens are your kids currently growing up in? This is going to be our last conversation question for the night before we finish out and then get to some Q&A. But I want you at your table to talk, or at your with your spouse, whoever you feel comfortable with, what you've been doing. You're going to have 3 minutes. What gardens are your kids currently growing in? And then take it from there. Here we go. 3 minutes. All right, guys. Get those last comments in. We're going to move on to leadership training. Remember, the goal tonight is that you leave thinking the home is the first mission field. Home is the first mission field. And your role as a missionary to your home. It does not matter to me if you remember all of the little details from church relationships, leader training, discipleship, evangelism. I'm trying to get us to think in a certain way, to have an attitude or a perspective. Any of these little things you can take with you, man, praise God. I hope that helps your home grow even more into the mission field that God wants it to be. But don't get overwhelmed as we walk through these things. Just think, I'm trying to have a perspective that God has given me an eternal soul that I need to steward for His glory and for my good. And so leadership training is our tagline. We call our kids up to who God has created them to be. Think about in the role of the life of a missionary overseas. We've gotten now to the point where there is a church, and now we want to have leaders for the church, elders and deacons. This is the overseas thought. And then applying to parenting, we not only want to surround our kids with believers, but we want to grow them up into mature believers as well, develop who God has created them to be. So how do we do it? How do we grow our kids up into who God designed them to be? First thing I want to call you to is this idea of watering the gifts of each child. Water the giftings of each child. It's one of my favorite parts of parenting, honestly, seeing what our kids are good at. We all like that. Hey, you're really good at this. In fact, it's kind of the temptation of sports, right? Oh, you might be really good at that. And even if you're okay at that, we still, me included, we're like, why do I think you're so good at this? I know, like logically, that you're kind of normal, like you fit in. But when it's your turn to hit, you need to hit it. Like, pay attention. My daughter, we were practicing hitting, not because she loves it, but because she loves me, I think, more than anything. And she is the least coordinated of our four, so it's difficult sometimes. Love her with all my heart. I'm going to get to some of her strengths in a minute. But she was trying, I'm trying to coach her, in the living room. Like, I'm trying to keep your eye on the ball, watch it. And she's our only lefty, too, which makes it even harder because I'm trying to teach her, but I'm not lefty. So she's swinging, and it's whiff, whiff, whiff. I say, Reese, keep your eye on the ball until it hits the bat. Like, stop looking at me. Look at the ball until it hits the bat. She puts her hands down. She said, Dad, but it's not hitting the bat. I'm sorry, baby girl. You do you, okay? I'll keep tossing this as long as you want me to. We want to see what our kids are good at and call them up into those gifts by encouraging them with our words and giving them opportunities to excel in those arenas. Is your kid or your student gifted at generosity? Let them be a co-leader in your family's gift giving at Christmas. Do they enjoy public speaking? Let them teach your family devotions a night. We talked about that one. Are they a natural leader? Give them responsibility over the family chores for a week. Think about ways that you can water the gifts that you see in your kid, even young ones. I'm not talking just students. I'm talking 3, 4, 5, 6. What do I see that you're gifted at, and how can I help you grow in that? This is training, leadership training, growing them up into who God's created them to be. I want you to think about the strengths, but as adults, we say this phrase, right? Every strength is a weakness. Yeah, you got the Michael Scott, like, I just love my job too much. This is a great episode in The Office. You guys should know who Michael Scott is, but is your kid strong at something? Great. Help them grow up in that. Is your kid weak at something? Great. God can use that. In adults, we say every strength is a weakness. In your kid, every weakness can be a strength. William Farley has a book, Gospel-Powered Parenting. That's 1C. I got lost in there. He says, the child who is fearful and sensitive might also be good at making friends. The child who's defiant and strong-willed is probably good at resisting peer pressure. The child who talks too much might have potential to be a good teacher. Learn to verbally and repeatedly identify God's grace in your children's lives. Not only are their strengths a chance for us to call them up, but so are their weaknesses. So are their weaknesses. In our family, I want to give you just some concrete examples so you can think, I don't really know what you're talking about. Here's our 4. And again, we're 10. Anyways, Levi, 10-year-old. Leadership. The kid can get kids to follow him anywhere. Our kids or otherwise. And he makes friends very naturally. These are 2 things. There are others. I'm going to give you some highlights that I see, that we see these gifts in Levi and we try to encourage him in those. Moving to Colorado was a great chance for us to really praise and encourage him that he was really good at making friends. And he has more friends than I do at this point in Colorado, so it works for him. Reese, our 8-year-old, she's compassionate. She is always looking at what someone else is feeling and how she can help. She's also nurturing. Anybody who is smaller than her loves her. Yeah, you walk around here and you'll see little people just trailing her around because she's nurturing. She loves to take care, to be kind. It extends into animals for her, for us. And so we have a dog because of her. Because of her. That's why I have a dog right now. And I moved it all the way across the country because of her, okay? She's nurturing, though. She actually takes care of it. It's like the classic thing, we're going to get you a dog and you're not. But that's a gift for her, is that she takes care. She's nurturing. She's compassionate. Cal, he's 6. He's only 6, but I think he might be our most just naturally athletic, gifted kid. He's coordinated. He's good at whatever he does with his hands. We're all the time impressed at what he can do whenever we play a game or whenever we're trying to accomplish a feat. But he's also very generous. The kid will give you the shirt off of his back if you need it. That's just his heart goes to generosity. And so we look at how can we encourage him in these things that we see as gifts. How can we call him up into who God has created him to be? And then Jordan. I don't know. Guys, he's 4. He's Jordan. He's the kid that power jumped off of the stage the first Sunday we were here. That explains him. He's crazy. He couldn't breathe when he was little. We had to do NICU for a week. And so I've always prayed that he would be powerful with his words. There's something in there that I feel like that would just be a great testimony that God would do in his life. His throat didn't work, and now he can speak well for the gospel. But who knows? He's 4. We're still figuring that one out. But this is what it looks like in our family to see who are our kids. And it is remarkable. You should find somebody in here that looks like they have kids older than you. Be careful with that one. And then ask them, are your kids the same when they're 16 as when they were 6? And you will get story after story about how just who they are is so much DNA. It's also nurture, but there's a lot of nature there that they just are who they are. And you get to see that, and you get to help grow that, nurture it, water it. So water the giftings of each child. The second way that we can be leadership trainers is to demonstrate authority and affection. And I'm going to have to skip some stuff after this one because I don't want to make us run too late. But demonstrate authority and affection. This one's really important. No matter what relationship you're in, you know exactly which one of these 2 that you prefer. Are you the authority or are you the affection? Do you know how you can know this? The last time your kids asked you for ice cream. Which one said yes, which one said no, okay? Authority, affection. It happens everywhere. Maybe more video game time. Maybe can I stay out a little later? Who they come and ask eventually becomes a telltale sign as which one of you leans affection and which one of you leans authority. If you couldn't tell, I'm the no guy, okay? The kids don't even come ask me questions anymore. They just go right to Amy because they have a better chance of her saying yes than of me. She says, go ask Dad, and they say, but he'll say no. It's like a funny joke around our house. I lean authority. However, I need you guys to hear this very important that you and I as parents, when we're thinking about leadership development, that we have kids that we're calling up their giftings, but we also want them to be healthy adults. We want to give them guardrails in their time under our roof that when they come out of our home, that they are not just uncontrollable, raging balls of hormones, but they have given themselves guardrails for 18 years of authority and affection. When we get out of whack, a lot of problems happen. Listen to this. All authority, no affection, leaves them knowing the rules, right? I'm good at the rules. Leaves them knowing the rules, but not loving the ruler. Isn't that kind of incredible to think about? We could raise a kid that knows the rules but doesn't love the ruler. Authority and affection. A diagnostic question, if you think I skew towards authority, is this. If you ask your kids if you love them, 99% are going to say yes. What if you ask them, do your parents like you? It's a different question, isn't it? Do your parents like you? Zephaniah 3:17 says the Lord rejoices over us. We know this is the type of love that our God has for us, that he likes us too. He rejoices in us. And we want to be those types of parents as well. We want to make clear that this is how God feels about us and this is how we feel about you. All affection and no authority. So we've gone on the all authority side. They can know the rules but not love the ruler. On the affection side, all affection and no authority leaves them loving you but setting themselves up as the ruler. I love you because you let me do everything. Actually, I'm the one that gets to make the rules. This is just as harmful. We're not giving them an accurate picture of who God is and how they are supposed to exist as adults in this world. They will have an authority. His name is God. Diagnostic question in this one. Do you, for someone who thinks, I lean very much toward affection and not towards authority, do you expect immediate obedience? Or are you constantly settling for 3, 4, 5 requests and then getting so frustrated by them that you blow up? You're like, wait, I'm the affection person. Why are we talking about blowing up? Listen, losing your temper actually shows a lack of authority because you've allowed them to disobey the first 4 times. Diagnostic question. Do I get so frustrated that I've said it 17 times that I blow up? Maybe you're leaning too far into affection and not enough into authority. This is an amazing thought. What you allow, you teach. As a parent, especially as a parent of a preschooler, you guys need to hear that one. What you allow, you teach. You're God's instituted authority in your child's life. Gospel-powered parenting quote. So you're in many ways a placeholder for God in the life of your kid. You provide, you teach, you discipline, you guide. And it's not an accurate portrayal of our Father if you are all authority or you are all affection. We have to give them these, if you think of it like a stream, the 2 sides of the stream, not letting water rush out on either way, because we're providing authority and affection. It's what our kids need. And it helps set them up to be a healthy adult, to understand that our Father loves them and that he is their authority, that he knows what's best. He's not giving them rules to make them miserable. He's giving them his law because he knows what's good, because it's flourishing, because it's for their best. So in leadership training, we call our kids up to who God has created them to be by watering the giftings of each child, demonstrating authority and affection. And then the last one is praying blessings. I just encourage you guys, I've run out of time. I want to encourage you guys to pray consistent prayers for your kids and grandkids. Maybe pick a scripture that means a lot to you and then hold that steady for them over years. We don't do everything right. I want you to hear we skew one way, the other. We don't do discipline right every time. We don't have family devotions every night. There's a lot of stuff we don't do right. I'm sharing some examples because I hope it's concrete and helpful for you. A prayer that we pray consistently over the lifetimes of our kids has been, Father, help them to grow in wisdom and in stature and in favor with you and man. Jesus, Luke 2:52. Grow in wisdom and stature and favor with you and man. I pray that their hearts would seek after you like a tree seeks after sunlight. Hold their words up. Don't let any of them fall to the ground. And give them the blessing of seeing many of your children become part of your family as they share the gospel. That's our blessing that we want to pray over our kids, that we hope one day bears fruit and proves true in what the Holy Spirit does in their life. The last one with our last minute is exit and partnership. We send our kids with gospel intentionality. Psalm 127 calls our kids an arrow. This is what it says. Unless the Lord builds a house, its builders labor over it in vain. Unless the Lord watches over a city, the watchman stays alert in vain. In vain you get up early and stay up late, working hard just to have enough food. Yes, he gives sleep to the one he loves. Sons are indeed a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the sons born in one's youth. Happy is the man who has filled his quiver with them. They will never be put to shame when they speak with their enemies at the city gate. Guys, what's the point of an arrow? Is it to put it on the shelf? Do you make an arrow to have it in your pocket 24/7? Or do you make an arrow so that you can take it to your friends and say, look at this amazing arrow that I created. Isn't it incredible? I mean, just look at it. No, an arrow is meant to be sent, to be shot. It's meant for a purpose, to go. We don't want our kids just to follow our rules, guys. As a home, as a first mission field means we're trying to grow a heart of wisdom so that one day, when they're independent of us, that they're dependent on God, that they're an arrow sent into the heart of the enemy. I want to close with this. We want to work hard as parents. I don't think anybody in here disagrees with that. You work hard whether you want to or not. In fact, most of you came in here probably just trying to survive. That's how hard you're working, is I just need to keep my head above water. But we also have to trust. We can't worry. We can't be anxious because we are dependent on God. The same gospel that our kids need, the same gospel that our mission fields need is the gospel we need. It's the same good news that God's love is not dependent on your parenting track record. God's love is not dependent on your parenting credentials. God's love is not dependent on how much of this you remember. He loves you because you're his. Because he has given you this gift of faith that allowed you to trade places with his perfect son. And if you are in Christ, he could no more remove you from the palm of his hand than he could kick Christ out of heaven. You are his. And he has not left you alone. Paul Tripp in the free book that we're giving you guys says, when your father sends you, he goes with you. This means that in every moment when you are parenting, you are being parented. Isn't that a comforting thought? In every moment when you're called to give grace, you are being given grace. The ultimate joy, guys, in our home is when we see it as the first mission field, and one day, we send out missionaries. Young men and young women who have been transformed by the gospel and are now sent out with the good news. Because we know, even though it'll grieve our hearts to send them, that is what the arrow was made for. That's why we were given this good gift. We are your church family, and we are here to partner with you. There are many ways that I'll let you read on your way out in how we want to walk with you through every single step of this missionary task. God is with you, and so is your church family. I want you to know that I am here to serve and partner with you. Morgan in our Storyline Students Ministry is here to partner with you. Jessica and Jenna in our Storyline Kids. We want to come alongside you and help your kids love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. We also want to encourage you to see your home as your first mission field. I know you guys have done a good job submitting questions. I see them trickling in. I also know that I'm 4 minutes over time. So I will look at those and try to email best I can, either personally or to the whole group, helpfully what those maybe guidances could be in there. Or I'll ask somebody smarter and they'll tell me the answer and then I'll send you what it is the answer is. I'm so glad that you guys are here tonight. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here and stick around. If you have a kid that is under the age of 1, there's a board book in the back on the drink table that I'd love for you to take. If we run out, we'll get more of those, but helps paint some of this hopefully for you guys. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll look forward to talking soon.